9 days into the ceasefire and the peace deal that was declared by Donald Trump and signed by multiple Arab and Muslim countries, Israel carried out the most intense and barbaric strikes against the civilians in Gaza since they signed that deal. Over 120 strikes that killed over 44 Palestinians in multiple parts of Gaza, most of them being children, many of which under the age of 10. Israel said that Hamas breached the ceasefire. As a matter of fact, we had media outlets saying that both sides claimed that the other side is breaching the ceasefire, completely ignoring the breaches of the Israeli regime since this ceasefire took effect. But there was something very interesting coming from the United States before these developments, which is this statement here coming from the White House, saying that the United States has informed the guarantor nations of the Gaza peace agreement of credible reports indicating that an imminent ceasefire violation by Hamas against the people of Gaza, listen to this, against the people of Gaza. This planned attack against Palestinian civilians would constitute a direct and grave violation of the ceasefire agreement and undermine the significant progress achieved through mediation efforts. The United States, ladies and gentlemen, is worried about the civilians in Gaza. They don't have a problem sending 1-ton bombs to Israel to land on infants, but they do have a problem now, supposedly, or arguably, because they said the contrary, at least by Donald Trump himself, who said that he doesn't have a problem in Hamas targeting people who kill other people in Gaza. But now they have a problem with Hamas taking action against Israel's collaborators in Gaza who benefit from the suffering of the people and are engaged in direct killing of innocent civilians in Gaza. What happened after that? Well, there was a report that there was an incident in Rafah all of a sudden, and Israel said Hamas is breaching the ceasefire immediately. We didn't know exactly what happened. Israel initially said 2 were wounded, but then we later found out that no, Israel said that they were actually killed. Major Yaniv Kula and Sergeant Itai Avetz were killed by anti-tank fire from Hamas. Is that true? According to several reports, that wasn't really what happened in that area. As a matter of fact, the Palestinian resistance published an outright denial in the form of Al-Qassam brigades, the armed wing of Hamas, saying that we are committed to the ceasefire and we deny any knowledge of the Rafah clashes. Their statement said that they actually lost contact with a group of people who held an Israeli prisoner of war in that area after Israel carried out a strike. And the Palestinian resistance usually accepts responsibility, and they publish the evidence as well of any attacks. As a matter of fact, they had an excuse to carry out an attack on these Israeli terrorists anywhere in Gaza because Israel breached the ceasefire 50 times since the beginning. Now with this biggest escalation, killing over 44 people. They killed a family of 11 just 2 days ago. 7 of them were children. Half of them were under 10. That's what Israel is doing in Gaza after the peace plan of Donald Trump. So what explains this escalation? Why did Israel do this? Well, we already know that the Israelis are vampires. They need to see blood. They thrive on blood and suffering against the Palestinian people. They have to make the Palestinians suffer. They need to suck up their blood. This is how they thrive. This is how they were established. This is how they lived throughout all of their life. Terrorism, killing, barbarism, depravity, destruction. This is what they are. This is their identity. So it's very difficult for the Israeli to carry on for 1 day without blood. They need to see the blood of people. Therefore, they conducted this attack. They themselves said, oh no, we actually found a tunnel network in an area where some of our prisoners were released from, and we decided to target it. Target a tunnel in an area where all of your people were held. How did that lead to the killing of 44 people? And how does that explain Israel targeting coastal locations next to the sea where people were sitting in their tents and sitting, some of them in internet cafes and in other buildings, residential buildings? How does that explain this targeted attack coming from Israel? What are they going to do, though? Is this the end of the ceasefire? The Palestinian side denied. They said, we are committed to the ceasefire agreement. What is Israel saying? Well, now they're saying that that's it. The ceasefire has been restored. We just destroyed this tunnel. Our prisoners of war were there. And now that's it. We're back to the ceasefire. IDF attacked strategic tunnel in Gaza City where 7 hostages were being held, according to them. The Air Force attacked dozens of terror targets throughout the strip in response to the ceasefire violation. Again, without confirming there's any violation. By the way, what Israel is doing in the south of Gaza is destroying more buildings. Do you know what Israel is doing in the areas that it is positioned in at the moment in Gaza? Destroying any remaining building. Sitting there, planting explosive devices, destroying it, and laughing and having fun and posting some videos. That's what they're doing. And there is no violation whatsoever from the Palestinians. As a matter of fact, the resistance confirmed this. It's been going very smoothly, not even one breach. And in those areas, there has been intense fighting. Therefore, there are many undetonated devices, or there could be pre-made ambushes from the Palestinian resistance where some of the Israeli machinery or bulldozers would be working to destroy more buildings and infrastructure before the people come in so that they can actually find nothing whatsoever. They could have had an accident and they killed themselves over there, and they took that as an excuse to kill more people. However, now they're saying we're back to the ceasefire. What kind of a ceasefire is this? Please, someone explain to me. What kind of a ceasefire is this? What, is the Palestinian blood that cheap? Or do you not consider the Palestinian people to be human beings altogether? Just say it as it is. Why do you hide it? Say, we view the Palestinian people as less worthy human beings. Therefore, we don't mind our allies, our chosen ones, from targeting them and killing their babies and infants. Say it as it is. Do us a favor, because that's what the situation is looking like. You are not talking about the breaches of Israel on a day-to-day basis, the barbarity of Israel, and you're not talking about anything related to the suffering of the Palestinian side. Where is this going to? Is Donald Trump serious? Are the mediators and the guarantors serious? Is anyone serious about the supposed and so-called ceasefire and peace deal that's supposed to bring an ending of the genocide and suffering of the Palestinian people? It doesn't seem to be the case so far. And from an Israeli perspective, they're actually worried from the future. The retired Major General Itzhak Briki had an interview or an article in the Israeli Ma'arif in which he stated that it was miraculous that Donald Trump actually pushed Benjamin Netanyahu and forced this agreement on him, but the future isn't looking really great. He said that there are 2 stages. We need to go into these 2 stages. And if we do not do everything to make this agreement a success in both stages, there is a real danger that a regional war would break out in the future in which the following could participate. Hezbollah in Lebanon, which is gaining strength. The Turks, jihadist Syria, according to him. Extremists from Jordan, according to him. Egypt and Iran alongside an intifada. in Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, the occupied West Bank, and extremist terrorism, in his words, within the state of Israel. Such a war could bring disaster to the country. Major General Yitzhak Brik was one of Netanyahu's biggest critics during the genocide. He was pushing for a deal. He called the mission to eliminate Hamas as impossible from the beginning. As a matter of fact, he reiterated that in this article over here, but he's portraying a picture that isn't really positive for the future of the state of Israel should this continue. And as a matter of fact, Benjamin Netanyahu isn't looking like he wants to continue with any sort of peaceful resolution. Benjamin Netanyahu is planning to have a situation like he is having in Lebanon, or slightly worse, a continuation of the genocide without the full force, targeted assassinations and attacks wherever he likes, and killing a few people, a few infants, a few children here and there, just to feed the bloodlust of the Israeli public and anyone in his government liking to see the suffering and the blood of the Palestinian people. Sacrifice, media sacrifice, so that the people can see the harm and damage and have fun. That's what Benjamin Netanyahu is preparing. Benjamin Netanyahu isn't preparing for a de-escalation. And the fact that the American administration is playing ball with this cover-up and this blame shifting, the typical blame shifting, gaslighting, your typical tactics of a grand manipulator, propagandist, saying that, oh, Hamas is planning a grand attack, and Hamas, if they violate, and talk about Hamas. If there is any sort of decency with any of you, if any of you had an ounce of decency, you would tell Israel to disarm. You would tell Israel to dissolve. That's what you would say. You would say, that's it, end of all of this fake entity that imposed itself against the will of the people. We need to have a normal country here between the Jordan River to the sea. People get equal rights. If you don't like it, get out. And if you do like it, and if you do love it, you stay. But you're equal to everyone else. No one is above the other party here. If any of them had an ounce of decency, don't tell me that these people who are speaking about a ceasefire and now turning a blind eye against all of these breaches are serious. How are we going to take you seriously? How is anyone going to take you seriously? Let alone with the fact that they're pretending as if, the war ended, there's peace, and as if we're going towards utopia. I wish that was the case. Unfortunately, it isn't the case. There are still 10,000 Palestinian abductees, and there must be an international campaign that would focus solely on the Palestinian abductees and hostages and demand for their release, alongside the campaign to dismantle Zionism and end the genocide inside of Gaza completely. More people are dying on a regular basis in a deliberate and calculated strategic move from Israel to kill people, starve them to death, torture them to death, ban them from any sort of medical access, and let them die slowly without anyone asking. No, there should be a separate campaign only speaking about the Palestinian abductees and hostages. Why did Israel, an occupying illegal entity, cry, and everyone was plastering the images of their IDF terrorists taken as prisoners of war in Gaza, saying, release them, and we don't have a separate campaign with more force to release all of the Palestinian hostages and abductees in Israeli prisons? There should be a separate campaign for these people. These people are suffering day after day. And to this day, ever since the ceasefire took effect, Israel isn't only breaching in Gaza, Israel is breaching in the West Bank every single day. North of the West Bank, south of the West Bank, every single day, they're killing more and more people. Yet, again, we're not hearing about that. It's as if nothing is happening.